Thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about our panelists, and some of you have sent in questions, so we will address those. If you do have any questions, we want everyone to have an opportunity to ask, so please feel free to utilize our chat. So Sippy Rosen is one of our panelists today. So Sippy received her master's degree from Yeshiva University, Wurzweiler School of Social Work. She has worked in many areas of social work throughout her career, starting in Head Start, where she worked with children and families, making appropriate referrals when needed. After starting her family, she returned to the field working in early intervention, completing assessments, doing play therapy, and parenting training. Prior to working at JFS, Sippy worked for Yahad, where she worked as the programming director. There, she implemented inclusive programs for participants with special needs and their typical peers. She began at JFS Services in September 2015 as the Special Needs Outreach Coordinator, where she runs parent and caregiver, grandparent, and sibling support groups, assists families with financial assistance, assists families with information and referral on community resources, as well as the services that Ruth and Norman Rales Jewish Family Services offer. In 2017, Sippy also began working as the Special Needs Community Liaison for the Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach County. She assists families with community resource information and manages the Jewish Abilities Alliance at South Palm Beach County website. Thank you for being with us tonight, Sippy.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have Ari Blumenthal. Ari received her bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Florida and her master's degree in social work from the University of Pennsylvania School of Social Policy and Practice. Ari has experience of working with individuals and families at all of life stages, ranging from childhood to older adulthood. Her master's level internship at the Penn Memory Center, Ari served individuals with dementia and provided mental health services to their caregivers. Prior to joining JFS, Ari worked at JAFCO, providing support to adolescent children who had been severely abused and neglected. Since joining JFS, Ari has been working with school-age children, providing individual counseling and group work to assist them in developing coping skills to manage various challenges they may face, including increased mental health struggles related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And then we have Ariella Block. Ariella was born and raised in Boca Raton, Florida, where she sparked her passion for helping others. Ariella is a licensed clinical social worker who obtained a bachelor's of social work from Florida State University and a master's of social work from Florida Atlantic University. Ariella received a postgraduate cognitive behavioral therapy certification from Florida Atlantic University. Ariella has had the opportunity to work alongside several agencies over the years, gaining experience working with a multitude of populations and mental health diagnoses. Thank you, Ariella.
Thank you.
So we will jump in with some questions that have been sent when people registered. And again, please feel free to type anything in the chat and we will address those questions as well. So Sippy, when we talk about the pandemic and what's going on in the world, what are some things that you should avoid saying when you're talking to your children? And what are some things that you should say?
So I think one of the things, you have to assess is your kids, their comfort level and where they are, and be where they are. It's very important. Kids feel very out of control and they kind of feed off of your emotions. So if you're very nervous and you're anxious, your kids are going to pick up on that. And, you want to be where they are. So you can say, offer them comfort and offer them honesty. If they ask you a question, answer it as honestly as you can. On the level that they are. If they're not really, if it kind of is one question they ask and that's it, then stop. You don't want to give them over information that they're really just not looking for. They want to be reassured, and validated. It's very normal for kids to feel anxious, especially, this pandemic has been going on for 1.5 years already. They missed 1.5 years of school, so they may have some anxiety about going back. And, reassuring them that you're there for them and what will keep them safe. The basic stuff that people say, washing your hands, when you're with your friend, just don't be on top of each other. basic stuff that they say. And if they see you practice it, then that'll be something also that they'll, and also an important thing is to find out what they know. This day and age, kids are so connected to the internet and social media, and they may be hearing wrong things. So I think it's important if they ask you something or they say something to you, say, oh, what do you kind of mean by that, and clarify for them. But not to go overboard with it. Like I said, if they're not getting deep into the nitty gritty of, some of the seriousness, then it's okay not to tell them. They don't need to know all the specifics of it. They just need to know for the day to day. Children like to feel in control. And so do adults, but this pandemic has taken away a lot of our control. So, you could talk about, like I said, like the things that they can control, washing their hands, keeping distance, going back to school, because that's what we're all up to right now, but doing it in a way that they'll be comfortable, and that it's okay, like I said, it's okay to go to school, because they're going to be like, I don't want to go to school, which we'll touch upon it a little bit later in a different question. And, check in with them from time to time, like keep the conversation open and keep the conversation going, that they know that you're there for them and that nothing is too little, to ask you, that they're comforted in that you're there. But the main thing I think is really try not to put, if you have anxiety, try not to put it on them and to show them, because kids feed off of, their parents all the time.
Thank you. Seems like keeping open communication is very important. All right. With school starting again, some people have been in school for the past couple of weeks. Some schools just started in the last week or two. How do you help a child who is anxious about going back to school? Or what do you do if your child is even refusing to go to school?
Those are both really great questions, and we're definitely seeing some of that happen now after this past year and a half with virtual learning and some optionality there, where some students were attending virtually and then transitioned to in-person, and they could even choose day by day which they wanted to attend, but now we're back to full-time in-person learning. So there's definitely some anxiety around that for the students. So just like Sippy was saying, Sippy really gave a good transition into this question, because it's really important to first take your own temperature, so to speak. So if you as the parent are expressing anxiety about your child returning to school with or without realizing it, your child is probably picking up on that, no matter how young they are. So really just seeing where you are. And if you are feeling anxious about it, that's okay, because this time is very anxiety provoking, but just checking in and seeing if you are projecting that onto the child. From there, you can use a lot of different strategies to really communicate with your child about what to expect. Just like Sippy was saying, what's in their control, what they can do at school to keep themselves healthy and to keep themselves in a comfortable space. One idea would be to share a game plan with the child to really talk through what their day is going to look like from the moment they wake up in the morning to get ready for school until the moment they get home, whether that's by bus or by car. That way the child will be able to have their expectations set. Having not been in the classroom or in the physical building for a long time, it might be anxiety provoking for the child to imagine going in and having to relearn how to be in school. So just talking through that might be very helpful. I would also say to definitely listen to their concerns and empathize with them. Sometimes a child just wants to be heard and they want their feelings to be validated. And once you give that to them and normalize and validate how they're feeling about going back to school, they might just feel better from that. Because some of the children, depending on their age, they might intellectually know that they have to go to school, but just to have their feelings heard about their anxiety could definitely help. Definitely also establishing a routine that even might begin the night before with packing their lunch the night before, laying out their clothes, and talking about the expectations for the day before they even go to sleep. That way, when they wake up, they already have an idea of what their day is going to look like. That could also be helpful. And I would say if it is a case where your child is having anxiety that is beyond what they can manage so well on their own, you can also always reach out to the guidance team at the school your child goes to see what supports might be available in the school, or just to give them a heads up to keep an eye on your child throughout those first days back or first weeks back. And then to address the question about if your child refuses to go to school, this is also a really great question, and for each child will look different for what their refusal looks like. But I think, again, listening to them and providing empathy is always a great place to start, because the child will want to be heard. And then maybe moving into discussing the logical reasons why they need to go to school. And again, this should be age appropriate, depending on if they're kindergarten grade. You know, the older they get, the more they can have that logical reason. And just to talk through some of that with them. Also focusing on some of the positive aspects of school can be helpful, having the child list what they like about school, whether that's friends, recess, lunchtime, their favorite teacher, PE, or even a subject that they like. Sometimes it would be helpful for a child to have a token or a small object that maybe reminds them of home, that they could keep in their pocket or their backpack to turn to when they're having those moments of the separation anxiety kicking in, when they're missing mom or dad or whoever the caregiver is. If they have, you know, a special pen or a coin or something small that they know is that reminder that they're safe and that home will be coming soon. Another idea would be to arrange for a handoff. If getting to school and getting the child to get out of the car is a challenge, it can be really helpful to have a teacher or staff member at the school be on your team, so to speak, and have them waiting when the child arrives at school to get them from the car into their classroom. And sometimes that handoff is just that staff member from the school engaging the child immediately in conversation, so they don't have that moment of anxiety of, where do I go? What do I do? And then lastly, I would say if it becomes severe and persistent, definitely seek help from a mental health professional, because separation anxiety can definitely become detrimental to a child's learning if they are consistently refusing to go to school.
Thank you, Ari. Ariella, in the world we're living in, it's important to take care of your mental health as well as your child and the rest of your family. So how can you maintain good mental health? And how can how can you help your child if you're struggling yourself?
So the first thing that I want to discuss is that you are able to remind yourself that some distress or fear is normal. You are not abnormal for feeling distressed from the effects of COVID-19. So that's where I'd like to start, is just identifying for yourself that it is okay to feel overwhelmed or fearful or anxious because of the situation that is happening. As a constant theme that's been going on, you know, as our past two presenters have spoken, is there's a lot of aspects of our life that are out of our control and it feels scary. So identifying that initial fear is very important. After you're able to identify that you are feeling emotionally distressed or you are experiencing a type of fear or anxiety, it's trying to figure out how to cope with that in order to maintain good mental health overall. So coping skills can be different for everyone. Some to just speak about could be deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, which is working to strengthen certain muscles for a certain amount of time, letting go of them, cognitive reframing, so working to challenge your negative self-talk or these statements in your mind that are negative and are causing you to increase emotional distress, or meditation. And as Ari stated earlier, if you feel like it's something that is out of your control, or you feel like what you are actively trying to do is not helping you, seeking the support of a therapist to help guide and develop your own effective coping skills is always extremely helpful. Lastly, under maintaining good mental health, I want to discuss a good self-care regimen. A lot of times we forget to kind of care for ourselves and take care of ourselves emotionally, mentally, and physically. Finding yourself a self-care routine that helps to alleviate your emotional distress and fits into your daily routine or schedule. If something you find that you began is not working for you, change it. Figure out what works for you and how you can squeeze it into your schedule. Take an active part in deciding when your self-care should take place. So scheduling it in as you would schedule in a meeting, or for a child, like scheduling a time to play a board game or a play date with a friend. Having that set designated time to engage in your self-care will make it feel like it's something that is more rewarding, or is taking time for yourself to set that time aside. Something that is forced is not always going to be the most effective. So remember to make sure it's something that it makes you feel good. It can be limited. Some self-care routines can be, but not limited to stretching, exercise, yoga, journaling, meditation, or simply just time to yourself to kind of have time away from the craziness of your day. And then the second question was how to help your child if you're struggling yourself. Both Zippy and Ari discussed this slightly, but what your child is feeling or what you are feeling is going to be projected on how your child is feeling. So I'm going to go back to self-care for you as a parent, increasing your self-care. It's going to be difficult to help a child who is struggling if you are struggling yourself. I want to remind you that it is okay that you are struggling and to reach out for assistance or help if need be, if you feel like it becomes something that is too overwhelming. You can encourage your child to create their own self-care routine that they can model after seeing you engage in a positive self-care or coping skill routine. And then again, going back to motivating your kids to speak about what is bothering them and refrain from talking about your specific struggles with your child. If your child is not really open to in the moment speaking about what they are struggling with, just remind them that you are an open ear. You are there for them when they feel ready to discuss what's going on with them, and not to shut them down. And then the last thing is going to be something Ari touched on, but I'll go into it a little bit more depth, is keeping a consistent schedule. A routine is something, and a schedule is something that you are able to have control of. So being able to meet day-to-day goals not only feels good, but helps you keep on a schedule. And then going into that, a consistent sleep schedule. It's oftentimes overlooked, but keeping on a routine of going to bed at, let's say, 10 p.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. Get your body into a rhythm of having an effective night's sleep, being ready to go into the next day, rested, ready to go, and feeling the best that you can after a full night's sleep.
Thank you. I know you kind of talked about some coping skills, but anything specific that you think you can discuss to reduce anxiety or just your overall physical wellness?
Yeah, so in regards to reducing specific anxiety, it's going to be focusing on what you're able to control. So you are in control of your mindset, your perspective, your emotions, or the way that emotions of others affect you. As it relates to COVID or the pandemic, limiting time watching the news or obsessing about increase in case numbers or things that are out of your control. Because if you are focusing or obsessing over what you are unable to control, you are going to be increasing those feelings of anxieties, feelings of stress. That is not what we want to increase. I spoke about this briefly initially, working to combat negative self-talk, that little voice in the back of your head that's telling you you're unable to do something, or this is never going to end. Whatever it is for you in your mind, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but that negative statement that you tell in your mind can spiral into other thoughts about how we feel about ourselves or the situation. So working to challenge those thoughts when they do come up into your mind and work to replace them with more positive self-talk in order to to create a routine of positivity within your daily mindset and thought process versus harping on the negativity. Another big thing is going to be practicing gratitude. I usually recommend either in the morning or in the evening. So right when we wake up or right before we go to sleep, take 5 to 10 minutes to identify what you feel grateful for. I always recommend for my clients to keep a gratitude journal or a journal that you write in, to keep a log of how you are feeling. It's very effective to look back and see what you were grateful for the day prior, and how your the different things you have been grateful for have changed over a period of time. Another thing is also reflecting on your blessings, again, what you're grateful for, and sharing with loved ones in order to get that feeling of validation, or, being able to share that with the people that you love. I'll say this again in regards to anxiety. Whenever you have any doubt, it's very, very okay to ask questions or to ask for help. Don't feel that you are alone in this process. Feel that you can reach out to friends, family, your support system, a mental health individual. Reaching out and saying that you need help is the one first step in accepting that you are going to work towards to alleviate that emotional distress, anxiety, stress, whatever it is. And then another thing as it relates to COVID-19 is try to create and come up with your own level of comfort as it relates to entering back into society. Don't feel that you have to align with others' views just because they're your friends or they're your family. Like, do what you feel safe with and you feel comfortable with, because in turn, when you are out in public and using the hand sanitizer or whatever it is, practice what you feel you are most comfortable with. And if that is not going out into what it is, do what you feel you are comfortable with. How to maintain physical wellness. Getting your body moving on a daily basis is extremely important, whether it is working out at home, going to the gym, going for walks in the mornings or evenings, engaging in online workout classes. If you're able to get outside, that's usually the most beneficial, taking in the fresh air, getting a change of scenery, and taking in the change. Physical wellness does not always mean you have to go to the gym and lift an intense amount of weight. Getting out and walking is just as effective. And again, the change of scenery, the fresh air will help you kind of alleviate that stress from sitting within the area that you were sitting before. And the other thing is holding yourself accountable for that. So if you feel you want to go on a walk with a family member or friend, or if you don't feel comfortable being within the same vicinity of someone, FaceTime is a great tool to use, going on a walk with someone via FaceTime or via the phone, to do it together, so you don't feel like it's something that you're doing alone.
Thank you. And I think your last point is important too, because especially with kids, they will sometimes give you pushback. So if you do it with somebody else, have a partner to do it with, I think it helps ease them into it as well. Thank you. Sippy, how do you talk to a child who is scared of getting sick?
So I think the most important thing is you have to listen, and let them express what exactly they're worried about, because sometimes parents are very quick to say, oh, you have nothing to worry about, and kind of downplay, and then that your child may feel like then they can't go to you and share their feelings, and their anxiety could get worse and worse, and it could manifest itself in some other behaviors. So I think listening is important, and a lot of it's similar to what I said before, letting them know that you're there for them, validating their feelings. Say, I know you're scared, especially now, because there are more kids getting sick with the variants than there were at the beginning. But together with them, establish a routine to help keep them safe. So yes, if they're going back to school, what can they do? And go through the day and the different times of the day and different scenarios with them, and kind of role play with them of what they can do to keep themselves safe in school. And if they're in a situation that they're not comfortable with, what they can do in that, whether it's talk to the teacher or go to the nurse, whatever it is that they feel that they're being heard and that their feelings are real. And, really just continue to validate and let them know that you're there for them and work through their feelings with them.
Thank you. Going off of this question, Ari, I know you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of students throughout the pandemic. So from your experience, how do the students feel about living through a pandemic? What have they shared with you?
So I've heard from a lot of different students of a lot of different ages, and every student has a very unique experience with the pandemic, whether they love to be home with their family and siblings and pets, or they hated it being home that long, or they loved virtual school, or they hated virtual school. But the overall theme I'm finding is that every student was significantly impacted on a multitude of levels with regard to the pandemic. And what I am seeing now that students are back in school is they're ready for it to be over. I just met with a student today that asked me point blank, as if I had the answer, when is this all going to be over? I'm so sick of it. And I said to him that I felt the same way and I wish I had the answer. And so I think right now what we're seeing is the students are ready to move on. They're ready for this all to be over, but it's not. And so then that's where we as adults come in to be there to remind them to continue practicing the safety measures in place, but also to be there to empathize with them and to be in that open line of communication to find out what they need. Throughout the pandemic, I think students have really struggled with missing out on the numerous milestones that are happening for them at this stage of their life, whether that's a graduation, a prom, a school dance, student government events that normally happen, or even for the younger kids, field trips, or class plays, all of those milestones that definitely affect their development in a way, but also are just those types of memories that I'm sure we all as adults look back on as very formative memories of our childhood. They're missing out on a lot of that, and a lot of them are very aware of that. And so they're struggling and grappling with the feelings about that. A high schooler who didn't get to have their graduation, who's now in college, that's really tough. But even for the high school seniors right now, when this pandemic started, they probably did not think that it would be affecting their senior year. So really just providing that empathy for them with regard to missing out on some of those major events. And then also just being back in school during the pandemic. They had a lot of time at home, and now they're reacclimating to being back in person in school. So one way that I've actually seen this play out is that some students are, now that they're back in school, feeling very anxious to be in the crowded hallway or the crowded cafeteria. And they weren't before the pandemic just because that was normal for them. But then for a year and a half, they didn't experience that. And now being back in it, it can be very anxiety provoking. So definitely I would recommend talking with the students about what exactly is making them feel anxious. Is it the noise? Is it the number of people in their area? Is it the social situations that arise? When you walk in that cafeteria and you have to choose where you're sitting. And then also talking with them about communicating their needs, whether that's to the school guidance counselor to see if there is an alternative or if they can transition to the next class right before the bell, before those halls are crowded. Because it's definitely a very real thing that I know I've seen, so I'm sure other social workers in schools are seeing this newfound anxiety being in this crowded space. Another example is that, I was just talking about a child refusing to go to school, and now that students are going back, there is some more of that separation anxiety from the parents, which might result in the school refusal. After spending over a year at home with caregivers, parents, siblings, it can be really hard for the children to separate from that. They're leaving their comfort zone. Some of them are, attending school from the comfort of their bedroom. And now they have to leave the house, be pulled away from the people they feel safest with most often, and they're going away from that. And then that's where those fears, like Sippy had talked about at the beginning, fears of getting sick and all of that also come into play with this. So it's really important, again, we've said it a lot, to validate how they're feeling and to empathize with them, and definitely seek that professional help if the separation anxiety becomes detrimental to their learning.
Thank you. And I know, you mentioned the separation anxiety and stuff like that, but Ariella, when you're working with teens, how do you deal with the teens that are showing anger and frustration?
Yeah, so communication is going to be super important when it comes to speaking with teens. Teens are a little bit more complex in their thinking patterns than you would say an elementary school child. And that anger and frustration comes out usually from underlying feelings of something else. Could be stress, could be anxiety, could be, what happened at school that day, whatever it is. We've said this multiple times, but working to validate the way that they are feeling and allowing them to feel heard. A lot of the times teens are struggling with comparing themselves to others or comparing some situation to another situation and feeling heard, that they are feeling frustrated or anxious or concerned with what is going on at school based on, COVID and the pandemic. They want to feel that they are heard and understood, especially for parents working to stay as calm, cool, and collected as possible when speaking with your teen that is angry, and trying not to get angry back at the teen or the teen in order to avoid further escalating the argument. They may feel then in turn to shut down because they feel like they weren't heard, or it would just lead to another fight. They don't like confrontation, whatever it is. So on your end, try to stay as calm as possible in order to provide a safe place for them to be able to express it the way that they're feeling. Another thing is, if your teen, when let's say you're in an argument or they're expressing their anger or frustration, and they're not currently able to communicate how they are feeling or what is going on with them, they're just really like in almost a rage. Work to let them know that you are there to speak with them. You are there to support them whenever they feel comfortable enough to come to you. They don't necessarily have to come and speak with you right this instant, but allowing them that support of knowing that you are there when they feel ready to open up is extremely important to not only validate the way that they are feeling, but also allow them some time to maybe process on their own what they're going through before they feel prepared to speak with you fully about what they're experiencing.
Thank you. So that is all the questions that were sent in. There were a few questions related to masks. So we just wanted to make sure everyone knows to follow the CDC guidelines. That would be our recommendation for that. I want to thank our panelists for coming today. I also want to share about some of the resources that we do have. JFS is a great resource in the community. So I will give the opportunity for our guests. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. And while you're doing that, if our panelists want to share a little bit about their role at JFS, what services we offer and what may be available. Sippy, your hand.
Okay. So I'm the special needs community liaison. So I work with families of all ages who have someone, a family member with any type of special needs, whether it's developmental or intellectual disability, mental illness, physical disability. If a family, lives in Boca del Rey and they need financial assistance, I would be the one to help them. They would, reach out to me. We help with all different kinds of things, whether it's just paying a bill that needs help. We've helped with equipment and therapies, really anything. We've done a wide array of things that we can help with. We also, I have a case management program for adults with special needs where we have a case manager who works with the individual and the family really across the spectrum with anything that they need, whether it's housing, employment, social, recreational, community resources, benefits, anything like that. I also get a lot of questions from people from local or from even out of state thinking of moving down about what resources are around. and available in the community. And as Jackie mentioned before, I also work for Federation, and we have an online resource guide called South Palm Beach County Jewish Abilities Alliance, which is really an online resource guide that you can go to and look at. So if anyone ever needs anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Sippy. While our panelists are sharing, I did put our website address and our phone number. So please make sure to write that down if you need anything. Ari, you want to go next?
Sure, yes. So I am one of the outreach coordinators in the JFS Community Outreach Department. In our department, we partner with schools, synagogues, churches, and other community agencies to provide JFS services, including financial assistance, the food pantry, brief counseling, referrals to other services at JFS and in the community, and much more. The Palm Beach County School District actually partners with community agencies, including JFS, placing therapists in many public schools. So if you're interested to see if that's at your child's school, definitely reach out to the school guidance counselor and see if a co-located therapist is placed at their school, because that might be a great resource for you in the public schools here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next because I am the last one. I am a therapist at JFS through our counseling department. So I work every day with different individuals providing psychotherapy. We, within the counseling department, offer psychotherapy for young children through adults into their elder years. There's no discrimination of age, race, religion. All are welcome. We do take some insurance, as well as we offer a sliding scale, meaning that based on what you are able to afford, a price would be given to you per session. All of that information can be given through our intake department, which you can contact through the phone number that Jackie put into the chat. We also offer psychiatric consultations and medication management appointments, meaning to help with diagnosing and getting medication for mental health disorders. And lastly, we offer psychological testing for children looking to be in gifted programs or for certain diagnoses. So that can all be set up through, again, our intake department by calling our main line. They'll just ask what you're looking for and you'll be directed to the wonderful ladies in the intake department.
Thank you. And a few other services that we offer that can benefit children and families in our community. We have a community mentoring program for children from single family homes, and they would be matched with a mentor, and they would be, spend a couple hours a month with them. So that is a wonderful program. We have career and employment services, a food pantry, financial services. And if you do have any grandparents or elderly family in the community, we have a ton of senior services as well. So please feel free to reach out to us if there's anything we can help with.